Hello, church. Back in the messy shop, talking about the messy business of learning how to be disciples. You know, some folks might wonder if it ever gets any cleaner. No, not in the shop, not so much in being a disciple either. Although Karen made me some nice curtains, huh? You know, if being a disciple means learning to have a Jesus-mannered walk, it's probably important then to ask, to study, to learn where and how and to whom Jesus walked. Because sometimes walking just like he did might actually mean we need to get going. When Jesus called disciples to come follow me, they understood it was a call to learn how to emulate everything about his manner of life. Not just learn from his teachings. They knew they were being called to become just like him in the manner of his understanding and practice of Scripture. How he treated people, how he thought and felt regarding his relationship with God. The dedication with which he obeyed the will of God. They knew it would mean actually going with him where he went and to whom he went, as well as learning to go themselves one day. Jesus came and Jesus went. That's critically important reality for our understanding of both our salvation and our walk as disciples. We can't miss the importance that Jesus came to us and for us. And Jesus went when and where he was asked and needed, even if it meant others thought he shouldn't go. Not to go there or to those people. Luke tells of a time that Jesus walked into the village of Capernaum after a significant teaching time, probably from somewhere in the fields and hills above the Sea of Galilee. You know, to fully recognize some of the wonder of this story told in Luke 7, to grasp something of the manner in which Jesus walked here, it's probably helpful to know a little something about Capernaum at that time. In Hebrew, it's actually two words, Kafar Nahum. It means either Nahum's village or village of consolation. Today, this is a significant archaeological site on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. In fact, you can actually see the remains of a 3rd century synagogue that sits on the basalt foundation of this very synagogue from Jesus' day. Capernaum sits on the northwestern shore of the Sea of Galilee, and it was an important fishing port. It was also a taxation center on a very important trade route called the Great Trunk Road. That road came up from Egypt along the coastal plain of Israel and then turned east into the region of Galilee, past Capernaum, and then continued north to Damascus. A great deal of Jesus' ministry happened in and around this large village. In fact, Matthew calls Capernaum Jesus' own city where he came to live. Mark said this is where Jesus was known to be at home. The region surrounding the Sea of Galilee was rather complex in the makeup of its population. It had very religious Jews. There were also more rebellious and even violent Jews called zealots. There were Herodian Jews who were really more secular. And then there were Gentiles who had come to live there, who'd come from all over the Greek and Roman empires. They were living in the region, but not always in peaceful coexistence. And directly across the Sea of Galilee to the east was the Decapolis city of Hippos, very Greco-Roman. To the south was the new city of Tiberias, built by Herod Antipas to be his capital in the region. Religious Jews, they wouldn't go into either of those cities. Religious Jews also wouldn't go into the home of a Gentile, as it would have been expected. There were pagan shrines and idols in the home, as well as unclean foods. Capernaum was likely a melting pot of these cultures, quite probably with separated living areas. There were likely pagan temples or shrines in it or near it. Where there was also a synagogue where public meetings were held and where Jewish education and Jewish Sabbath worship took place. The building of the Capernaum synagogue had apparently been funded by a centurion, a Roman soldier. We don't know why the centurion built this synagogue. It may simply have been to establish goodwill. That wasn't unheard of in Roman attempts to keep the peace in conquered lands. Maybe he really had come to love the people. Maybe he had even begun to worship this Jewish God. Perhaps he was there having retired to live on land in the fertile farmlands of the surrounding hillsides, land that would have been confiscated from the local Jews and given to him by Caesar. Perhaps he was the centurion in charge of the Roman soldiers in the region. What's interesting, to me at least, is that he wants Jesus to come and heal a beloved servant, but instead of asking Jesus himself, he asks the Jewish elders of Capernaum to present his request. It's interesting, even shocking, because in this region, Jewish people had experienced a tremendous amount of persecution, oppression, loss of land, liberty, even life at the hands of Roman soldiers. In fact, recent history to this moment, Jesus' approach included thousands of Jews put to death in just single-day crackdowns. The whole Zealot movement began in this region, and from here would begin the great Jewish revolt in the late 60s that would lead to the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem in 70. Jesus would have been most recognized in the group of religious or Orthodox Jews, more in line with the Pharisees than any other group. He was observant. He was considered a rabbi or master teacher. He would have been expected to keep himself religiously pure and thus not enter the home of a Gentile or for a tax collector or sinner for that matter. The centurion would have known an Orthodox Jew wouldn't want to enter his home or possibly even speak with him. The leading Jewish citizens of Capernaum, though, clearly held this centurion in high regard. Luke writes that they earnestly pleaded with Jesus to attend to the centurion's request. The elders did so, he writes, because he is worthy to have you do this for him, for he loves our nation, and he is the one who built us our synagogue. The word translated there, nation, is ethnos in Greek. It really doesn't mean nation like we might think, a land defined by borders or constitution. It really means a people defined by culture, religion, heritage. Now, there's a lot that we could explore regarding this story. I just want to point out one thing in this devotion. With all the background of the time, the place, the clash of cultures and the ethnicities with who Jesus is and what the centurion expected would be Jesus's discomfort in coming to his home, don't miss what could be easily overlooked. The very first part of Luke 7:6, and Jesus went with them. Jesus went. He went to help someone outside his people, someone many of his own people considered an enemy. He went to someone considered unclean by Jewish religious standards. He went to help someone who may have had Jewish blood on his hands. He went to help someone who at least one of his disciples, as a zealot, would have hated. Wrong ethnos, wrong belief system, wrong moral character, and still Jesus went. If we're going to walk in the same manner in which Jesus walked, we're going to have to learn to go to the places that no one else wants to go, into the needs for healing and grace and love no one else is willing to go, to those who are asking, to those who are needing. Jesus went. Just like he went to help a synagogue ruler named Jairus when asked. Maybe Jairus was one of these very elders. Just like he went to the Decapolis side of the Sea of Galilee to find and heal a man possessed by demons, a raving madman, feared and rejected and discarded by society. Just like he went through all the cities and the villages in the region to touch, to heal the multitudes who reached out to him. Just like he came into the world for all of us, intentionally. Why? Because God so loved the world that he sent his only Son, that whoever believes in him wouldn't die, but have life, everlasting life, abundant life, fruitful life. He came. He came and he touched and he loved and he lifted up and he healed and he gave life. He did so for the rich and the poor, the sick and the dying and even the dead. He came for his own ethnicity, and he came for those his own people despised, rejected, refused to acknowledge. He came for those his own considered enemies. And he came for those who rejected him. And he came for us. And he called us to follow him. And he came that we would go. So if one truth of being a disciple is that having a Jesus-mannered walk means we're to walk to people who need help and healing, even if it means places and lives utterly different, even despised by our own people, where might we be needing to go? Who might be asking us right now to come? Because sometimes walking actually means going. Shalom, church.